It's a pleasure to have with me Vanessa Farsadaki. She's a space medicine expert and futurist and mother of Astromedicine. Welcome, Vanessa.
Thank you so much for having me. It means a lot to be here.
Vanessa, I would like you to describe a day in your life.
Well, each day is very variable. It's completely different. It always starts though around 5 or 5:30 in the morning, where I have to do my gym training. It's a regular standard thing that I just have to go through every morning. If I don't do it in the morning, I'll never be motivated during the day. But mainly my everyday life consists of meetings and talking to all the important people that are driving the next generation of space health and the entire space industry, really. So between meetings, I make sure whenever I have a break to do some language lessons, which I absolutely love, so that I get to upkeep everything that I have up until now. And then, of course, everything that has to do with my training on a more personal side. It's something that I do a couple of times per month. So very variable is the short answer.
What is space medicine? Can you describe it in simple words?
Yes, of course. I actually get that question a lot. Space medicine, in very simple terms, is all the medical work that happens for people that go in space. Traditionally speaking, space medicine up until today was all the health-related issues for astronauts, all the research that went behind them, the flight surgery specialization after medicine of having astronauts as patients. And why was it called flight surgery? Quite simply because back in the 30s, when we started having the first pilots and the first people flying, we needed some doctors to take care of those guys. And quite simply, nobody was there to do that. And we created this new specialization that could deal only with people that flew. Over the years, though, we started flying up higher and higher, right, until we reached space. And we've been even further away than just that Kármán line. So who did we have to deal with those patients? Well, flight surgeons. So again, we have the same group of people. The education hasn't changed, the training hasn't changed, and we deal with astronauts, that elite part of humanity, as if they were pilots.
How do you see the future of space medicine?
Well, like I said, right, flight surgery is the way to go if somebody wants to do space medicine today. However, it gets complicated fast nowadays. As you probably might know, with all the commercial side of space, we have space tourism, private research missions that are no longer for that elite part of astronauts that was training for 5 or 10 years at governmental agencies such as NASA, for example, or ESA. Nowadays, things are changing. Anybody can go to space. It can be somebody who has enough money to pay for the ticket, for example, or it can be somebody that has been chosen just because they're really good at what they're doing. It doesn't have to do with the amount of triglycerides they have, or whether they have diabetes or high blood pressure, or whether they have myopia, right? So it's very open. And that is the concept of democratization, right? Opening up space to everyone. That concept, however, demands, as I always say, the democratization of space medicine too. The concept of opening up to everybody has to be made accessible to everybody too. So the way that I see it, we're going to have to adapt to the new space health ecosystem. We see that space technology is really high up, and space health, of all the people that are driving that technology, is creating a gap. And that gap needs to be closed in order for us to be able to face whatever comes in the near and far-term future.
As a futurist, how do you see the future of humankind and space?
Humankind has been a people of exploration. Ever since the cradle of humankind, humans have looked up in the sky and wondered what is out there. Some people believe that they were gods out there. Some people, at the very minimum, were in awe of everything that was happening out there. Some people, further down the line of history, decided to go on boats and discover the rest of the world. Those were pioneers. But at the end of the day, it's something that is a core belief to humans. So exploration is within us. So exploring space is something that we are bound to do. Other than the exploration, though, that question is very complicated because there's a lot of elements that go into play. There's the dynamics between countries, for example, where space law comes into play, where we're trying to figure out what are the laws that we're going to have to follow in space, what is allowed, what's not allowed, what we can do and we cannot do. Of course, that is the goal so that we don't create tension on planet Earth. Then there's another aspect that has to do with energy. Energy seems to be, of course, due to the current situation that we have around the planet right now, kind of a crisis. Well, there are categories of civilizations that we have theorized in the universe. Those that have mastered the energy of their own planet, those that have mastered the energy of their solar system, those that have mastered the energy of their galaxy, and a fourth one of the universe itself. We haven't even managed to do the first one. We're not even able to face and understand our own planet. So we're, in my view, a baby civilization, if we were to call us that, in terms of the energy. Energy is the key in terms of economy in space. Anything that has to do with mining, like asteroid mining, or the moon mining, or eventually when we go to Mars. The moon is a lot richer than Mars. So I would put it in two categories: the romantic version of why we're going into space and the practical version of why we're going into space. The practical is going to overturn the romantic, but the romantic will always be there.
You are in line to become the first Greek American woman to go into space. What are your feelings?
Well, yes, that's true. The training consists of a lot of interesting things, like reaching my own limits. I have been, all my career life, I have been a person that studies a lot, that knows how to sit down and open a book and learn everything there is. I love knowledge. But overcoming my own limitations body-wise is something that becomes very interesting very fast. So my feelings are mostly excited, really, overjoyed. The fact that I get an opportunity to do something like that is amazing. I'm not so much interested in whether I'm first, last, middle. That doesn't really play a role. To me, I really want to go into space and get some research done. But especially for that, on a more selfish reason, especially for that overview effect that all of astronauts have talked about in the past. That overview effect is the moment you launch into space and you look outside the window and you see the curvature of the Earth and you see that very thin atmosphere and you realize that all your problems and happy moments and sad moments and challenges and stresses and neighbors and good neighbors and bad neighbors are all underneath that very thin protective layer at the end of the day. So that overview effect, I think that everyone should experience. So that would be my selfish reason. But my reason to humanity is the fact that I want to do space health research. And that is the reason that I will one day be going.
Talking about Greek, now you are in Greece, we are here in Athens. You are here for a special reason. Would you like to tell us a bit more about it?
Yes, yes, of course. So actually, I wish I was here for vacation, but that's not the case. There's this award ceremony happening on the 27th of July of 2023. We have been invited, about 150 women were written about in a book that is a very special book, and it's very beautiful too, if you get your hands on it. It's called Greek Women of the World, and it's written and supervised by Miss Mary Risaki. She's a wonderful woman that has basically found the 151 women that are most profound researchers and top in their respective fields, and put together their CVs or resumes, if you will. This beautiful book has been created. The ceremony, the award ceremony that will be happening on the 27th of July will be awarding some of these women for their pioneering and their research. So I'm very excited about that, and actually, even if it is for work, this is a great pleasure and honor for me.
What would you say to young girls who want to become astronauts?
Well, you know, there's two things that I'm mostly proud of. First, the fact that I'm Greek, and secondly, the fact that I'm a woman. I may be a lot of things, but those two are the ones that I'm most proud of. So the fact that you're asking me specifically for young girls, well, it's something that's very close to my heart. And on a personal note, I try to do a lot of things offline in my plenty of free time that I have to be able to give back. The number one thing that I tell them, regardless of their age, is to be true to themselves. And I know it sounds cliche, but what I really mean by that is that when you find something that inspires you and you like to do, just go with it. I have this quote that I really love by Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was giving a commencement speech at university. I don't remember which one right now, and he said that he was a dropout, right? So he said that during that one semester that he was at university, the only thing that interested him was to take up a typography class, you know, for different letters and fonts. And he said he ended up years later being so thankful for that decision because the Mac ended up having so many different fonts in it due to that class, due to that appreciation that he followed about something that he loved. So just follow what you really love, and it all falls into place. Right now, it seems like the only astronauts that are out there are mostly military, down the military path that is, mostly engineers. One position opened up at NASA at the last cohort of astronauts for a space doctor to take, which was groundbreaking. We were all very happy in the space health side. But those are rare. The interesting thing is that in a few years from now, when we will be at a networking event and asking each other, what is it that you do? Hi, nice to meet you. And one person will say, oh, I'm a dentist. My question would be, oh, great, Earth or space? And within space, is it the moon? Is it Mars? Is it a free-floating settlement? Why? Because the education you're going to get for that is going to be completely different. The tools, the environmental conditions are going to determine what it is that you're going to educate yourself about. So regardless of what you love, becoming an astronaut from now on will not be something limiting. It's not going to be one specific path. It's going to be opened up, and everybody will be needed into space. from hairdressers, because we're going to take our beauty standards with us, it's part of humanity, to programmers, to STEM researchers, to agriculture scientists. Whoever it is, we're going to need. So the advice is just be true to yourself, find what you love, and astronautics is right there waiting for you.
What was your childhood dream?
Well, what an interesting question. Surprise, surprise, when I was a child, one of my earliest memories actually was being here in Greece and sleeping outside under the stars. A word that in Greek is called stromatsada, right? You just pull out a mattress outside, and during happy times you would just look at the sky. I remember my grandfather telling me about the stars and navigation of sailors, because he was a sailor himself, and it was something completely, absolutely inspiring. A few years later, fast forward, I was about 12 or 13. I was living with my family in Brussels at the time. I had a super, super inspiring teacher who was a professor at university here in Greece and was teaching us at the European school in Brussels. And I remember, so all of our teachers were friends, right? My mother as well, who was a teacher, and they were all hanging out, and I would kind of sneak in and listen to their conversations. And I remember him talking to us about space-time and black holes and cosmology concepts, and I was fascinated. I knew I wanted to do something with space, and I'm actually very thankful to him, Professor Xenakis in Volos. So there are some elements and so many people that's very hard to mention that kind of paved the way for me to figure out exactly what it is that I wanted. But it seems to me that space was always there for me, always there.
What is the most challenging thing you had to deal with during your career?
I'm actually very thankful that you're asking me this. Things don't come easy. They don't. They just don't. We all face things, bigger or smaller, and I bet if we were to all compare the things that we have been through, I think we would choose to keep our own burdens rather than exchange. There's a lot of things that were challenging. The number one obvious thing is the fact that I am trying to create a new science right now, a new field that will be taught at university, so that other individuals that want to do what I'm doing right now won't have to do all these different degrees and go through all these challenges that I had to go through. So my path consisted of so many different degrees that seemed kind of crazy at the time. What does astrophysics have to do with medicine? And why did I study business when I had a degree in genetics? So the fact that I put all those puzzle pieces together was very challenging. I remember those last 2 years of medical school. I was at the University of Pavia in Italy. I just was so full of patients and rotations that I needed some math in my life. I know it might sound crazy, but I did. I needed a switch. I needed a shift of mind to be able to do something else. So I found the only program on the planet that was a complete master's degree in astronomy and astrophysics that is called at the University of Valencia in Spain. And I realized, okay, if this is the only one that I can do, I will do it. And what did I have to do? Well, I spoke Spanish at the time, but it had nothing to do with the Spanish of astrophysics level university, right? So what did I do? Well, I spent 3 months studying Spanish for university level astrophysics, and I spent 3 months studying physics and math in Spanish because I hadn't done any since high school. And I got into that program, and I I did basically astrophysics at the same time as my rotations in medical school. Most people ask me, why is there this thing in your CV where you have two things at the same time? That's why. That's because I just wanted to have an escape, basically. During those 2 years, I also happened to have to work. I had to work to support my family and help out. I remember I was working in Geneva because my family used to live in Geneva in Switzerland, and I was doing medical school in Pavia and doing the online learning in Valencia. And I was working 5 different jobs at the time, and I remember being on that train and I couldn't remember whether I was going or coming and what time it was. And you know, somebody might say Crimea River, you were between Switzerland and Italy. But I mean, each person goes through things that are complicated and difficult. And the point is to not get hung on those things and just be, again, what I was saying before, be true to yourself. If this is what you see that needs to be solved, you see a problem that needs to be solved, go ahead and solve it. That probably means that you were put on this planet for you to solve it because you're the only one who can see a solution. You know, I tell my mentees that, and by the way, I always have mentors and mentees, no matter where I am in my career. I think it's the #1 thing to advance yourself, better yourself, and also help the others with the experience of where you've been and done what they are trying to do. I tell my mentees 3 things. You need to figure out 3 things. The first one is your purpose. Why were you put on this planet? What is your mission? And this you can find sooner or later. Some people figure it out at the age of 70, 80. There's no age for that. And some people figure it out at 6. The second thing is the dream. Something that will motivate you to wake up every morning so that you get to accomplish it. And when you accomplish it finally in your life, you can say that you have lived a full life. And the third thing is a job. Preferably a job that makes you happy to go to and spend time with. If eventually you find the combination of 2 or 3 of those things together, then you're a happy person. It doesn't necessarily have to be all 3 together, but it's something that composes things. And those things are some of the things that I had to learn by myself, going and getting to where I am today.
Which famous person would you like to have dinner with and why?
What a complicated question. I'm guessing you're saying dead or alive, so if I were to pick anyone, I would probably pick somebody like Tesla. He was an individual that wasn't a specialized in only one thing. He was a generalist, kind of like me. He had a lot of puzzle pieces in his hand and was seeing the world for its bigger picture, not just under a microscope. And that to me is something that I admire. Similarly, somebody like Da Vinci might also be very interesting because, again, lots of different interests. The combination of inventing, meaning that the person has a big, wild imagination to think outside of the box, in combination with scientific skills, makes the world move forward. And oh boy, I don't know what I would say or ask during that meal. I would probably not eat much. I would be just bombarding them with questions. I have a lot of people that I admire. Stephen Hawking, who unfortunately has now passed away. Lots of great people. And my #1 question to somebody like Tesla or Da Vinci would be, were you happy? And what did your happiness consist of, really? Yeah, but thank you for that question.
You consider to be the mother of astromedicine. Could you tell us a bit more?
Yes, Well, astromedicine is a field that's very close to my heart, obviously. It's something that I have created to rebrand space medicine, if you will, because as I was telling you earlier, it's something that needs some rebranding. It needs a redefining. And that revolution, as I call it, is long overdue. So through an introductory book as well to that concept that I have created, I present basically the way to make astromedicine the path, sure, clear, open path of how one can access anything space health related. It's a two-pillar model. On one side, we have the educational part. Anybody in a few years will be able to study it at any university around the world, study astromedicine. And on the other side, it's the concept, it's a wheel where we have investments going into those new brilliant ideas that there are to develop space health solutions. So basically we're creating jobs and workforce. And that thing is going to start supplying itself and maintaining itself for the long run. Now, astromedicine in itself will mainly consist of 5 things. Of course, it will be medicine. There will be some biology, some engineering to be better able to understand the human factor side. So, for example, if somebody wants to build a capsule to launch, how will we make it friendly to the human? Then there will be an aspect of business so that we better understand the concept of how the market works, whether something is worth pursuing, not, what needs to be fine-tuned, etc., investments and everything like that. So this whole concept of astromedicine will be a clear path, rather than asking ourselves, is a flight surgeon enough, or is a clinical researcher enough, or do we need also an astrophysicist in there, or do we also need a business expert to help us? An astromedical professional will be somebody whole that will fill in the gaps that are currently needed and are wide open and shouldn't be open anymore.
Thank you, Vanessa, for today. I'm sure we will meet again in the future with more accomplishments by you, and I wish you good luck.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the conversation, and I love the questions. I hope we meet again very soon. Thanks.